Welcome everyone to another episode of the JBK Show. On this week's episode, we have a huge guest on, one of the most well-known Australian professional boxers, a two-time world champion, coming off some great news this week. We're excited to have you on, Billy Dib. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Billy, we've been watching the journey from afar. It's been so inspiring, and we thank you for your time. Just let us know, how you're feeling right now today.
Feeling okay, man. It's one of those things. It's going to be a rebuild process, like after going through chemotherapy for the last 5 months. It's a pretty heavy drug, and to get it out of your system it's not an overnight thing. So the rebuild's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm just glad that it's over.
For some of the younger audience that follows us, and people that don't know a bit about your backstory, you're originally a footy player from Engadine, out Cronulla. You used to play a bit of footy. Man, we're around the same height. What position were you? Were you dummy half or you halfback?
Man, I used to play on the wing.
Really?
I used to play on the wing.
Could have been Hazem.
No, never, man. Hazem was a legend, but footy definitely wasn't my thing, But my dad just put us in some after-school sports just to try to break down the barriers with the kids. But I enjoyed myself, but my brothers were really good football players, so I tried to follow in their footsteps, but it didn't work.
And then you're going to have an unbelievable boxing career, record of 48-6. Majority of them were stoppages by knockout. What made you get into boxing so passionately and almost have that mindset of dominating the sport and being one of Australia's best?
Well, it was just something that happened by accident, It all started with a boxing session at football training, and the trainer that was there noticed that I had a bit of talent, and he suggested that I go to Sutherland PCYC. I walked into that gym and never looked back. It was just like my destiny was right in front of my eyes.
Was it tough to fully commit to it? Because you obviously played other sports, other things going on with your life. Did you just say, as soon as boxing came along, you're like, I'm pursuing this 100%?
The minute that I walked into the gym, that I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. I was only 12 years of age, and I was like, this is my whole, my whole life was just flashed right before my eyes, and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do.
And your family immigrated from Lebanon to Australia. You're a big Lebanese family from Lebanon.
Yeah. What's
your family's role in being such a support system throughout your career and then obviously on your journey now?
Yeah, well, look, man, it was an amazing journey. My brother Imad was my manager. My brothers were my biggest supporters. My brother Muhammad was always in my corner. My brother Jihad was like the father figure who made sure that, everyone behaved themselves.
Yeah, he's the MP?
Yeah, he's the MP. Yeah. So whenever we'd go away, he'd make everyone, make sure you guys behave, and, you're representing Billy. And so we had a good time, It was definitely like a family, you could say a family business. Mm-hmm. We just enjoyed the journey, and I was just so happy that I could take my brothers on the ride with me.
Well, throughout your career, you've come across some of the biggest names in boxing. Prince Naseem, Mike Tyson, Sugar Shane Mosley. Who's been the most influential person on your career in boxing? The
most influential person to enter my life was definitely Prince Naseem Hamed. He was my childhood hero, somebody who I dreamed to meet. And when I met him at the age of 17, to be able to sit here now and tell you guys that me and him are like brothers.
Well, a lot of similarities in your styles as well.
Well, he was my childhood hero, man. He's who I looked up to. He was who I tried to mirror. Mm-hmm. And, the fact that I could say that I won the IBF featherweight world title is the same world title that he won in 1997 when he knocked out Tom Boom Boom Johnson. That's just a blessing in itself too, man. Me and Nas, we share a great relationship. He's definitely like a brother to me.
Being someone that you looked up to, what was it like meeting him for the first time?
It was so surreal, because when I arrived into the UK, when it had been set up, I was sort of kept waiting. And days passed and he didn't turn up, and they told me he's coming, and I even spoke to him on the phone and he didn't turn up. So I sort of thought it was a bit of a hoax.
Someone's gening you up.
Yeah, someone was gening me up. And then so in the end, when one of the drivers was like, get in the car, I'm taking you to see Nas. And he took me to the gym, and there was this gym, and I hit the doorbell and it says like, welcome to Prince Naseem's boxing gym. And I opened the door and there he was, man. I just broke down and started crying.
Wow.
And he started consoling me and like, oh, man, don't cry, man. Why are you crying? And I was like, it's like a dream come true, It's, to meet your childhood heroes, like, just imagine you loved Michael Jackson or, some Kobe Bryant or whatever it was, and, you got the chance to meet him, and not just meet him, but become like brothers with him. That's how it was for me. It's like, it was so surreal.
You've written a book about your career and your life, A True Heart. it's called.
Yeah.
What's that process been like, reflecting on your career, looking back retrospectively?
Honestly, it's been amazing. It's been one of the most beautiful journeys, to go back on photos and pick photos for the book, and just to go back on a journey of, what me and my brothers went through, and just the whole journey, man, from 50 Cent to Sarah's death to, me getting cancer now. And that's all in the book, so it's just been an amazing story, Like, you don't imagine that somebody crammed that much into their life. And
you're only 37, 38 years old.
37. So
Yeah.
to cram all that into a book is it's been unreal, and I can't wait for everyone to read it, because it's definitely a great read.
Looking back to yourself as a 12-year-old starting boxing, and then doing the book, in that time, did you achieve everything that you thought you'd set out to? I mean, winning 2 world champions, pretty good.
Well, I can be honest with you, man. When I was a kid, I dreamed of just becoming world champion. Winning 1 world title was going to be enough, But I on 2 occasions I begged God to allow me to become champion of the world, and the 2 occasions that I begged Him, I became champion.
Wow.
But I challenged for many world titles. 5 in total. I challenged for 5 world titles, and I came up short on the other 3. But I never begged for those. But the 2 that I won, I actually begged for. I said, God, please, I'm begging you, give me these wins.
Does it kind of put it into perspective now that you've gone through this journey with cancer, that, life can be so fragile? Like you said, you're asking God, at one point in time, all you cared about living and breathing was winning titles. But then, when you reach a later stage in life, really, life is so much more important than...
Yeah.
Health's all that matters.
Sure.
At the end of the day, health is all that matters, and being around your family. Has that kind of settled, like, obviously now that you're past it, but like, do you look back on it and go, at the end of the day, that were just titles, or, I wish I don't regret really anything in the past, because I'm just grateful to be,
yeah,
with
man.
my
Look,
family?
I've got no regrets. I had an amazing career and a wonderful journey. When I got sick, man, the only thing that I really wanted was time, and I begged God for time, not for anything, but just to be there for my wife and my son. It was so important for me to be there for my wife and my son, and it's.
Yeah.
That's all I asked for. I just wanted, when the doctor told me that I was in remission the other day, I was just like, I just started tearing up, because I was like, I get, like, nothing's promised, but now I've got some time with my son, because I could still die in a car accident, or anything could happen. You could be walking and a pole falls down, hit you in the head. That's how fragile life is, man. But the fact that God allowed me to come out of this cancer and be in remission is a blessing, man. Because like I said to you, I've seen a lot of people dying.
How have your wife and kid taken it?
My son definitely knows what's going on. He's so switched on for a 3-year-old. But
Wow.
my wife shed a lot of tears, and it's just been a really joyful time, not just for me and her, but for my whole family. Like my relatives, and my mum and dad, my brothers, my sister. Everyone got very emotional, and it's just such an amazing victory for us.
I want to talk about your journey. So, it was on the side of last year that you felt a pain in your stomach. You didn't know what it was. You never felt pain like that. Do you think it was divine intervention that, you were in the gym, you were sparring, you cop a body shot, and if you hadn't copped that body shot, who knows what would have happened to find that tumour?
Well, the thing is, man, is that the doctor had said to me is that these things go undetected for years. So the fact that you found it is a miracle in itself.
Wow.
And like my trainer said, today we're not going to do any head sparring, we're just doing body sparring. And so, when you're doing body sparring, you actually open up a little bit harder to hit the body, because you're not going to take any shots to the head. So we're winging them away. And the kid that I was in the ring with, his name is Billy Dib as well. Billy Dib.
Billy Dib versus Billy Dib.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And so he hit me in the stomach, when he hit me, I felt this pain that I'd never felt before. It wasn't like the pain that you get when you get winded or anything, but it was like a sharp pain, like somebody stabbed me. And then that pain, it didn't subside, it just stayed day after day. 1 day passed, 2 days, 3, 4, 5, 6 days passed with this pain. It was horrific, man. And then in the end, I just said to my wife, I said, I need to get it checked, because I'm just not feeling well anymore. I'm not feeling the best.
And then you get diagnosed, and you get misdiagnosed. Your actual diagnosis is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. What was your immediate thoughts when the doctor said you've got a really, rare form of cancer?
Well, I had discussed with some of the other doctors that chemotherapy was not an option for me. I was totally against the chemotherapy option.
And why was that? Just because you didn't want your body to deteriorate as much?
Yeah, I
and
just thought,
you've seen it firsthand how it can affect someone.
For sure. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to go through that. You know, I mean, I'd seen what it had done to people in the past, and you know, I'd done a lot of reading about it, and you know, from what I had read, it's like you don't want it, and
Well, it totally transforms your body.
yeah, well, man, and you can see what's happened to me. You know, so like you know, as you can see, I'm a different human being. People don't even notice who I am at the moment. So, you know, anyhow, the doctor come to me and basically said, look, you know, do you understand what you have? And I said, I really don't understand what I have, and I don't. What is it? Tell me, explain to me. And he goes, you got a cancer. It's called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And he goes, basically, it's the fastest growing cancer, and you'll be riddled. And he goes, you won't see 6 months.
They gave you 6 months.
And I was like, what do you mean 6 months? He's like, well, he goes, the life expectancy is 6 months. And I was like, my initial thing that I said to him was that you're not God and you can't say that to me. And he goes, no, I'm not God. He goes, but I've studied this. And he goes, and studies show that within 6 months you'll be a completely different human being. You might not be around anymore. And then I said to him, well, I got a 3-year-old son that I got to walk to school in 2 years' time, so I'm ready to do whatever it takes. And he goes, so I was like, what do I got to do? And he's like, you need to start chemo yesterday. And I was like, well, I'm on board, man. He's like, so you want to do the chemotherapy? And I was like, of course. I said, I can't leave my son, you know what I mean? That's crazy. But I'd been telling my mum in the lead up, I'll never do chemo and all that. So then when he left, and me and my mum were left in the room, I just looked at my mum and said, Mum, I can't die.
Yeah.
I got to take my son to school. Like no one's going to love my son like I'm going to love him, you know what I mean? No one's going to give him the attention that I'm going to give him, you know? So.
And he was probably your biggest motivation throughout this whole
Definitely, man.
treatment and process.
100%.
What were some of the biggest challenges of undergoing chemo in that whole period before obviously getting the good news?
Man, it was the most challenging, horrific, you know, daunting. Every word that he can pick, man, it's like...
As bad as you can imagine.
Yeah, it was horrific, man. Like, what chemotherapy does to you is just like... I saw death on 6 occasions. I was like, there's no way that I'm leaving the hospital. Like, this is not humanly possible. Now I understand why older people die from this thing, because the body just can't handle it, man. And the fact that I'm here today is a blessing, I'm telling you, man, because the chemotherapy really hurts.
Do you think your time as a boxer and being an ultimate athlete and competitor helped, obviously, with your recovery?
Because you did say cancer chose the wrong opponent.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got too much to fight for.
Yeah, I think the fact that my son was born, man, it was just, that was the winning factor, you know what I mean? It's like I just couldn't fathom leaving this kid. I just could, you know what I mean? Like, thinking about him having to witness me dying or getting buried at such a young age, it was something I was like, no, I'm not going to. Every time it was a difficult time, I was like, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Just to, you know, a few days ago, you announced via social media that you were in remission. Your son, Laith, put out in big bold letters, my dad's cancer-free. Again, what was that feeling like, you know, getting told the news that you're cancer-free, you celebrating with your family and son? What was the family's, feelings?
It was crazy, man, because I got up in the morning really early. We woke up at around 7:30, we were ready. I didn't really sleep that night, so my wife woke up and stuff. We got ready, and then we headed to the hospital, and you know, they waited for me to do this scan, which took nearly 2 hours. And when we were at the where you do the scan, like, there was a guy, his name's Larry, that he couldn't really give me a clear indication of what I mean, if I had beaten it or not. He just basically said, you're going to need to speak to the hematologist. And so I had to be patient. And then I rang the hematologist and I was like, just letting you know, I've just finished the scan and
get me the results.
I'm really looking forward to the result. And he's like, Billy, I'm in theatre today and I won't be able to give you the result till tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And I was like, oh, Doc, you have no idea. I haven't slept a minute since last night. Like, you're keeping me on edge. He's like, look, I've got to go back into theatre. And I was like, no worries, I'll speak to you tomorrow. So I said to my wife, I said, not getting the result today, you know. So I had to go off. Basically, in my mind, I was like, I'm trying to go off Larry's facial feeling, you know. So, I mean, he looked okay, and I was like, oh, maybe, you know, you just don't know. And then a couple hours later, Dr. Bhattacharya rings me back and he says, Billy, listen, I got some great news. And I said, what is it? And he goes, you're cancer-free, man. You're in remission. I was like, you're joking. And he's like, no, I'm serious. He goes, but I got to go, but I just want to let you know, just so you could have a good day. And so my wife was upstairs with my son, and after I got off the phone with him, I ran upstairs and I was like, you're not going to believe it. She goes, what? I said, I'm cancer-free.
I can imagine the smile on your face
she
now.
goes, you're joking. And I'm like, Dr. Bhattacharya just called me right now. He's told me I'm cancer-free. I promise. And she's like, oh my God. And then like we just like sort of all hugged, and we picked up my son and we all hugged and whatever. And
What
my wife started crying. And then I was like, I got to ring my brothers. So I rang my brother Emad and I rang my brother Jihad and whatever, and just let him know the news. And then my wife was like, we got to do the most amazing post now and whatever, because we sort of did like a video of like going to the hospital.
Well, so many people were invested in your journey because, you know, they've been following it along, and it was, when everyone saw the post, it was like where everyone was kind of celebrating.
Yeah,
you know?
man, just the fact that my son could hold that, you know, and he held it up like so proudly, you know.
Yeah.
He was jumping up and down, turning in circles, and I didn't... Like, he was just, man, he the thing is that gets me is like he knows, like, you know. And as I said, you know, it's like from the moment that I got sick and I finally come home after 28 days, this young kid sort of knew what was going on, and he was like, Dad, I love you, you know. I've got to kiss you every night, Dad, and I've got to hug you, Dad, and, you know, I've got to sleep next to you, Dad. And that just, I mean, that in a way it breaks you, but it makes you feel like, man, this is what I'm fighting for, you know.
So he's one of your biggest motivations, your son. What do you want him to look back on this whole journey?
I know. Like, I was actually thinking about that yesterday, man, because I was like, he is only 3 years old, but as he gets older, you know, he's gonna know about this, because this is something that's part of my life forever now, you know. And I just want him to look back and think like, you know what, my dad was a brave man. My dad, like, and I'm gonna let him know, you know, Dad, I did that for you. You know, like, I fought this thing for you as best as I could, but you know, I'm never going to be an advocate for chemotherapy, and I'm never going to be an advocate for cancer.
You want it to be a last resort?
Yeah.
Like, as it was for you?
Yeah. I just pray and I wish that nobody ever gets this disease, you know, but I know it's something that gets around. There's something in the world that's causing this thing. And, you know, and I just want to, if I have to inspire people, you know, I just explain to them that, you know, it's very difficult, you know. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And the fact that I'm alive is a miracle in itself. And, you know, any person who's survived it is, you know, you got to give them their kudos, man, because this is not easy. You know, like as I said, the chemotherapy is not easy. It's definitely the most difficult thing that I've ever experienced in my life.
And what's the process now for you going forward? You're in great spirits.
Yeah.
What do you have to do, you know, going forward to keep it under control?
Now it's basically just, you know, it's about recovering and getting better, and just trying to do everything that I can to stay healthy, eat clean, which I've been doing for the majority of my life, you know, like.
So it's not too bad of a transition for you.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I used to love having a little bit of chocolate and lollies and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously they say that cancer feeds off the sugar. So, you know, like now I've basically cut all sugars out, and I'm just going to do everything in my power to just remain as healthy as I can. I mean, it's a rebuild process, so I got to get strong again. Like, you know, I lost a lot of muscle, and I want to rebuild, and then we'll just see what the future holds, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's going to be some really exciting things to come.
But originally, before you got the news that, you know, you had this rare form of cancer, you were in talks to be possibly fighting George Kambosos. Do you still have aspirations of being involved in boxing, whether it be as a coach or, you know, one day eventually getting back in the ring?
Definitely. Look, I'm not sure about getting back in the ring. You know what I mean? Because obviously, you know,
your mind's not there. Yeah.
I'm 37 years of age right now, and you know the body's not strong at the moment. So that's not something I'm really thinking about. We'll wait and see. You know what I mean? Obviously, maybe an exhibition down the road, something like that. We'll see what happens. But right now, I'm looking after a young kid who's from Morocco, and he's going to be champion of the world for sure. I've got no doubt about it. You know what I mean? We recently did a few rounds with Tony Harrison. So he sparred with Tony Harrison, and you know, obviously we know that Tony's fighting Tim Tszyu,
this
which is
weekend.
going to be a great fight for the Australian public. But this young kid that I've got, his name is Munir Fathi. He's very, very skilled, and you know, the other kid is that I'm invested in is my younger brother Yusuf, who's also, you know, on the verge of fighting in a couple of weeks' time against Kai McKenzie. So, you know, there's good things happening, good things that are going to keep me in the sport for sure.
What are your thoughts on the current state of boxing in Australia? I feel like it's growing in popularity. Like you said, you got No Limit on the forefront. You've got, you know, Tim Tszyu fighting a big main event fight this weekend.
Just coming off the back of Cambosis as well.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Australian boxing at the moment?
I think Australian boxing is very healthy, man. I think we're in a healthy state right now, and I think that, you know, Australian boxing needs to really thank the Rose brothers, man, because they've just, man, turned this thing upside down. You know what I mean? They've turned it on its head, and you know what? It's a blessing that Tim Tszyu is the son of Costa Tszyu, because if Tim Tszyu was Tim Smith, he wouldn't be the star that he is today. You know, the fact that his father was Costa Tszyu and such a legend, I mean, that's given him the platform, and then that's given No Limit the tools to be able to put on these amazing shows. It all works hand in hand, you know what I mean? And I know that Tim's his own man, but the fact that he has the Tszyu name as his last name, it really helps.
Yeah, you're not taking anything away from him.
No, I don't take nothing.
He's earned everything.
Let me tell you something.
That helps him.
Tim's a phenomenal fighter, man, and I take nothing away from him. His father's done nothing for him to, in regards to his boxing skill. But Tim's father did do something like the upbringing that he put the kids through, that made him who they are today. But in regards to his boxing skills, that all comes down to his uncle Igor, you know what I mean? Igor has been teaching Tim since he was a kid. So, you know, like, you got to give Tim all the credit. It's like this.
And they've got Nikita up and coming as well.
So if let's, my son's 3 years of age now, right? Let's fast forward another 15 years. Fast forward 15 years, he becomes 18, and then he wants to take up boxing. The fact that he's my son gives him a platform.
Gives him a head start, definitely.
Gives him a head start. You know, there's a lot of great fighters out there who don't have the head start that Tim got. I'm not hating on that, because in 15 years' time, if my son comes to me and says, "Dad, I want to box," and I can't stop him, because at the end of the day, he's going to do what he wants to do, you know, he's going to have an amazing platform.
Sometimes that is needed, and they carve out their own path.
Yeah, and like I said, Tim is where he is today because of Tim. You know, like he won the fights. Yes, he's got the last name, but he won the fights. And this weekend is going to be no different.
That's why I want to get your thoughts on that. So Tim Tszyu up against Tony Harrison this weekend. What's Billy Dib's prediction the way the fight's going to go?
Look, man, I think that I think it's going to be a great fight, but I don't want anyone in the Australian public to underestimate how much of a big win it would be if Tim got the win.
Tony Harrison is in Australia and he seems very confident.
Oh man, but let me tell you, Tony Harrison can actually really fight. So if Tim does beat Tony Harrison, he's beaten a very good name. Because you have to understand, Tony was the only guy to beat Charlo. And the truth is that even in the rematch with Charlo, like, in my opinion, he was probably winning 8 rounds to 2 until the stoppage. So, you know, he's a very, very talented fighter, very skilled. And I think Tim's going to need to have an A+ performance, but I believe he can.
Because I feel people are underestimating Harrison.
Because Tim's had so much publicity around him from the start. So the Australian public is so invested into Tim. And so no one's going to tell you, oh, that Tony's got a chance, but it is going to be a very, 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 very good fight. I believe so. And I believe that, you know, Tim's going to need to go to another level, which I know he's got it in him, to get the win.
On that, you know, Tim Tszyu came out, and like others in the boxing community have come out in support once hearing the news that you were in remission. You know, people like Eddie Hearn came out. Tim Tszyu says he wants you there at the fight on Sunday. How does that make you feel with some boxing greats coming out and saying how happy they are for you with this great news?
It's a blessing, man. It's like I said, man, I'm so grateful, because it could have gone any other way, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a toss of the coin, man. So, you know, God's good, man. God is great, you know, and I'm just grateful to, you know, to be in remission now, and just to have the opportunity to be there for my son, and the fact that all these amazing people from the world of boxing, like Eddie Hearn, Lou DiBella, you know, Todd Grisham, all these amazing
Tony
people.
Jeffries also.
Yeah, Tony Jeffries. All these amazing people who are involved in the sport of boxing and, you know, sending their love and support. And then you got Tim saying that he wants me to be ringside. That's just beautiful, man, because I remember when I fought for the IBF world title in 2011, if you wind back, Tim was sitting ringside. So I invited Tim, his dad, and his grandfather Boris, and they were ringside. So Tim watched me win a world title, man. So to be able to sit ringside and watch Tim emulate, you know, to some extent, that's just amazing.
Comes
man.
full circle.
Yeah, it's beautiful how life. And the thing is, you know what? Many years ago, when Tim was just an amateur, I actually told Tim that he's going to be champion. I believe that. I watched him fight one time in some venue in near Brighton, and I was like, man, this kid is like just wow.
Speaking it into existence.
Yeah.
And if he wins this fight, I think it's going to give him the confidence to go over to the States and challenge Charlo.
Look, he's already been to the States, and he already had a good win. And I know that he had a little bit of a stumble in the fight, but he got back up and did his job, man. And to win that fight in the fashion that he did, he was dominant, you know.
And it's also more impressive that he's able to go through the knockdown and
Of
still
course.
win. That's what probably
shows
makes
resilience,
a fighter
man.
better.
Boxing's all about resilience, and you know, and the fact that he could get up and dominate the way that he did was just his class, man. And so, you know what, Tim and his family have always been very kind to me. You know, his father's always been very, very kind to me. So, you know, I'm definitely gonna support them the way they supported me.
Well, I was also speaking to you off camera about this, but I myself want to get in the boxing ring. I've been being trained by Huss Hamden, son of Nader Hamden, so that's given him a little bit of a push. He's on with No Limit as well. He'll be fighting fairly soon. Any tips for me getting in the ring, Billy? Got to show resilience, obviously.
The most important thing that I can tell you, man, is that if you're just doing it for some fun, don't get in the ring, man, because this sport is, you know, it's a very
Dangerous.
Unforgiving.
Yeah, it's an unforgiving sport, man. It's one punch and 10 seconds away from disaster. And what I mean is that, like, you know, you could take a shot and end up in a really bad state. You know what I mean? So if you are going to do it, make sure you put everything into it. Train really hard and focus, and just understand that, you know, that boxing is not a game. It's a sport where you know the aim of the game is to basically knock your opponent out. So, you know, it's the hurt business.
I mean, because we're about the same height, but you fought at about 57 kilos.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to drop about 30 kegs.
Yeah, I might have to lighten up a bit. But mate, spoken like a true champion, Billy. I mean, we appreciate your time. Your journey's been so inspiring for us. You know, the Lebanese community that's followed along, the boxing community. Mate, we're so happy for you, and thank you for providing so much inspiration to us.
No, thank you guys so much, man. I appreciate your love and support, and, you know, the love and support of the Australian public and the world, man, because not only the Australian public, the world's been so supportive, and I'm just so grateful and thankful for all of your prayers, because if it wasn't for your prayers, maybe I wouldn't be here today, and I'm just glad because through your prayers now I can watch my son grow up, God willing. And
you can catch Billy's journey in his recent book, A True Heart. Billy, do you want to talk about the book and what it entails?
Yeah, man. So the book's, you know, basically a book about life, you know, about the journey, overcoming the bullying, you know, the racism, you know, the setbacks in boxing, overcoming Sarah's death, you know, getting remarried, watching my child grow, and then obviously, you know, just the boxing opportunities that I was given, you know, the fact that, you know, I was able to meet and rub shoulders with some of the best fighters in the world and experience some of the most amazing things on some of the most amazing shows. It's all in the book, and it reveals all. It basically reveals all, you know what I mean? And say, and even the book was going to go to print a long time ago, and then they recalled it when I got cancer, you know, because they were like, no, we got to put the final chapter in, which is you beating cancer. And I was like,
wow.
You know, it was all about manifesting that I was going to beat it. And that's the whole thing about life. You know, if you want something, you believe it, you want to achieve it, you got to manifest it first. You really got to believe that you can achieve it, and you'll get there.
Inspirational story. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Thank you, man. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.